Hi there. Would you like to see how the past simple tense is used in practice? Great. This is how you do it. 1. Watch this video, and before each part, 1 to 10, check if you know all of the words and phrases from the list. 2. If you don't, you can use our Quizlet course to learn them. It is available in 6 languages and it's for free. 3. If you know all of the words and phrases, just listen to the stories. This way, you will practice the past simple tense, vocabulary, and listening skills. These stories come from this book, so if you like books or need the vocabulary lists and stories in a paper form, you can get the book on Amazon. Link in the description. Are you ready? Let's start. Part 1. Past simple. What did you do yesterday? Story 1.
Claire, 27 years old, France. I did not go to work yesterday, so I had a lot of time for myself. I woke up at 9 a.m. I made coffee and drank it in bed. I watched my favorite TV show. I finally got up at 10, went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth, and washed my hair. Then, I ate breakfast, yogurt with chocolate granola and honey. It was delicious. After breakfast, I got dressed. I put on a long blue dress and walked to the park near my house. My dog Charlie went with me, and I played with him. In the afternoon, I called my best friend. We talked for an hour. It was time for dinner, but I did not cook. I ordered pizza. I watched a movie and read a magazine. I went to bed at 11 p.m.
Story 2.
Tomek, 38 years old, Poland. Yesterday, I started a new job. I woke up early because I didn't want to be late. I went to the bus stop and waited for a bus. It arrived at 7:15 a.m. On the bus, I listened to my favorite music. It helped me relax. I walked into the office at 7:45. My boss welcomed me, offered me coffee, and asked me some questions. Then, she showed me my desk and my computer. The people in the office were nice. They helped me when I didn't know something. We talked a lot too. I finished work at 4 p.m. When I came back home, I emailed my friend to tell him about my day. In the evening, I could finally relax.
Story 3.
Ben, 8 years old, Scotland. Yesterday, it was my birthday. I turned 8. My parents organized an awesome birthday party for me. I invited my friends from school. My best friend Annie couldn't come because she was ill. She didn't feel well. I was sad about it. The party started at 3 p.m. First, we went to McDonald's and ate dinner there. I ordered a chicken burger and French fries. My friends ate burgers and fries too. After dinner, it was time to have fun. We played board games, danced, and painted each other's faces. My face was red, yellow, and green. I looked funny. Then, I got presents from my guests. They were all great. The party ended at 6 p.m. I loved my party. It was the best.
The end of Part 1. Part 2. Past simple. What did you do last weekend? Story 4.
Mikhail, 30 years old, Sweden. Last weekend, I met my girlfriend's parents for the first time. It was stressful, but they were really nice. They traveled from England to meet me and spend the weekend with us. On Friday afternoon, we drove to the airport. We were unlucky, the police stopped us. They wanted to see my girlfriend's driver's license, but we couldn't find it. We looked everywhere, and I finally found it in my pocket. My girlfriend was angry at me. We arrived at the airport 45 minutes late, but her parents weren't angry because their flight was late too. On Saturday, we showed them our favorite places in the city. We went to 2 museums and ate dinner at my brother's restaurant. I introduced my brother to them, and they really liked him. On Sunday morning, we drove them back to the airport. They thanked us and said that they had a great time. I was so happy that they liked me.
Story 5.
Nikki, 26 years old, England. I visited my best friend Anna last weekend. She moved to Germany in 2019, and she had a baby a few months ago. Her daughter Katie was born in January 2021. I missed Anna, so I couldn't wait to see her and meet Katie for the first time. I was so excited. I bought a present for Katie. Anna said that it was cute and useful. I stayed at a hotel because Anna's new apartment is small. We didn't do much on Saturday and Sunday. We just talked, went for long walks, and enjoyed our time together. I really needed such a relaxing weekend. It was perfect.
Story 6.
Julia, 21 years old, Poland. Last weekend, my friends and I decided to go for a short trip to the mountains. I didn't want to go at first because I had to study for an exam, but they said that it was a good idea. They were right. I relaxed and forgot about my exam for some time. The weather was great, it snowed a lot, but we all loved it. Everything looked so magical. I took many photos, shared some of them on social media, and I got so many likes and comments. On Saturday, my friends and I went skiing. It was difficult for me at the beginning, but I practiced for a few hours and finally learned how to do it. I fell 10 times, but I didn't break anything. The next day, we had a climbing lesson. We climbed indoors with an instructor. It was hard, but we had a lot of fun.
The end of part 2. Part 3. Past simple. When I was a kid. Story 7.
Miranda, 37 years old, Canada. Life was easier when I was a kid because I didn't worry about anything. I liked going to school and learning something new every day. I enjoyed painting and drawing, so my favorite subject was the arts. I drew a portrait of my Grandma Jo once, and she loved it. After school, I often went to the park with my best friends, Molly and Adam. We ran around, played basketball, or rode bikes. When I returned home, my mom or dad cooked dinner for me. It was always delicious. After dinner, I did my homework. My parents didn't have to help me because it was usually very easy. When I finished, I watched my favorite cartoons. On the weekends, I slept longer and played with my friends even more. It was great.
Story 8.
Agnes, 28 years old, Hungary. When I was a child, I lived with my Aunt Anna and Uncle Albert because my parents worked in England. I saw Mom and Dad only once a month, so I missed them. I phoned them every evening and told them about my day. Anna and Albert were like my second parents, and their daughter Mila was like my older sister. Mila and I woke up at 8 a.m. every day. She made breakfast for me, and we went to school together. After school, we did our homework. Mila was very smart, so she explained the things that I didn't understand. She always answered all of my questions too. Every Friday afternoon, we went to the swimming pool together and swam for 2 hours. That was how swimming became my favorite sport.
Story 9.
Ozan, 24 years old, Turkey. When I was a kid, I traveled a lot. My parents worked as guides, so they showed people different places around the world. We lived in France, Portugal, Canada, and Australia. We moved a lot, and I changed schools often. It was difficult because I missed my friends, but I loved meeting new people. I learned a lot about their cultures and traditions. My favorite country was Australia. We lived there for 3 years, and I met my best friend Tony there. Our dads were best friends, so we spent a lot of time together. On the weekends, we always went to the beach, swam in the ocean, and built sandcastles. Our dads taught us how to surf. I wasn't very good at it, but I liked it a lot.
The end of part 3. Part 4. Past simple. When my mom was a teenager. Story 10.
Tammy, 19 years old, Wales. When my mom was a teenager, she was very loud and crazy. Her father, Grandpa Stanley, told me that she wanted to go to a party every weekend, but he didn't let her do it. He told her that she was too young. When she was 16 years old, she got a job at a small cafe. She sold coffee and cakes. The job was boring, but she needed money to buy trendy clothes and go on trips with her friends. She worked at the bakery 4 times a week after school. Every Saturday, she went shopping with her best friend Rebecca. They loved fashion, so they went from shop to shop and looked at clothes. My mom had a lot of friends, lots of hobbies, and many crazy ideas. She even joined a rock band when she was 17. That was crazy because she couldn't sing or play any instruments.
Story 11.
Marco, 15 years old, Croatia. When my mother was a teenager, she lived in a small village near Zagreb with her parents and her older brother. There weren't any schools in the village, so my mom and uncle had to walk for an hour every day to get to school in Zagreb. Their lessons usually began at 8 a.m., so they woke up at 6. They got dressed, ate breakfast, brushed their teeth, and quickly ran out of the house because they didn't want to be late. My mom was an excellent student. When she was 14, she won a contest for the best student in the city. She loved learning and helping other kids learn. 3 times a week, she helped younger kids do their homework after school. In her free time, she also liked going to the gym. She exercised twice a week and always had a lot of energy.
Story 12.
Emma, 20 years old, Germany. When my mom was a teenager, she lived in Florida. She loved living there because it was almost always sunny. It rained very rarely, and she hated the rain. Her biggest hobby was dancing, and she was very good at it. She practiced 5 times a week after school. Her dance lessons cost a lot of money, so my grandfather found a second job to pay for them. When Mom was 17, she broke her leg and had to stop dancing. She was very sad about it because she really wanted to be a professional dancer. Her parents tried to help her, but they didn't know how. A year later, she finally found another hobby, writing. She wrote every day, and she really enjoyed it. Her stories were very interesting.
The end of Part 4. Part 5. Past simple. When my grandfather was young. Story 13.
Kelly, 21 years old, Canada. When my grandfather Jimmy was a young man, he was very handsome and elegant. He wore suits all the time, and all the ladies in town thought that he had the nicest smile. He worked as a hairdresser at a small salon in Ontario. Most of his clients were men, but he sometimes cut women's hair too. One day, a beautiful young lady came to his salon. They began talking, and they liked each other a lot. That woman was my grandmother Lorraine. Jimmy and Lorraine decided to meet again the next day. They laughed a lot and had a great time. Grandpa asked her to meet again, and she agreed. They saw each other every day. He always brought her flowers and opened the door for her. He was a real gentleman, and my grandma loved it.
Story 14.
Patrick, 30 years old, USA. When my grandfather was young, he lived on a big farm in Colorado with his parents and 4 brothers. There were many animals on the farm: pigs, cows, chickens, sheep, and horses. Grandpa got up at 6 a.m. every day, gave them food and water, and cleaned after them. He worked on the farm for 7 or 8 hours every day. It was difficult, but he really liked it. He loved animals, so he enjoyed spending time with them. In his free time, he rode horses. It was his hobby, and he was really good at it. When he turned 18, his parents bought a new horse just for him. He was so surprised and excited. He practiced horse riding every afternoon after work. When he was 23, he left home, moved to Kansas, and bought a small farm for himself. He took his horse with him, of course.
Story 15.
Rodrigo, 17 years old, Spain. When my granddad was a young man, he wanted to be a famous singer. It was his biggest dream, but he didn't believe in himself. He didn't have a lot of money, so he couldn't pay for professional singing lessons. He sang at home every day, but he always closed the door to his room. After a few months, he finally decided to sing for other people. Every Friday, there was a karaoke night in his favorite pub. He went there one evening and sang Elvis Presley's song Blue Suede Shoes. When he finished singing, people clapped a lot. Grandpa thanked everyone, and he started coming to the pub to sing again and again. He chose a different song every week, and people loved it every time. He became really famous in his town.
The end of Part 5. Part 6. Past simple. My worst job. Story 16.
Mateo, 29 years old, Spain. When I was 17, I got a summer job at a fast food restaurant. I wasn't too excited about it, but I really needed the money. The lady who interviewed me was lovely. At first, I liked the job, the people I worked with were nice, and I didn't have to get up early because I started at 11 a.m. every day. After about 2 weeks of working there, I felt really bored and tired. I had to do the same things every day, and I couldn't even go to the bathroom when I needed to. There was so much work to do all the time, so I only got 2 5-minute breaks a day. I also didn't like talking to the clients, many of them were terrible. They didn't respect me at all. They just wanted to get their food as quickly as possible.
Story 17.
Charlotte, 44 years old, Austria. 3 months after I finished college, I started working as a graphic designer in a big company. I felt very lucky because it was my dream job. I designed posters and graphics for websites. I created new projects almost every day and really enjoyed it, but I hated the atmosphere in the office. People were rude, and they talked about each other a lot. Most of the people on my team didn't really care about their work, and the boss often asked me to complete their projects. I didn't have time for myself and my family because I had to work all day. One time, the boss called me at 11 p.m. He told me that I had to do something very important. I wanted to say no, but I didn't want to lose the job. I worked there for a year, and it was the worst year of my life.
Story 18.
Carla, 32 years old, Chile. What was my worst job? When I was 22, I sold cosmetics for a few months. I hated it. I didn't work at a shop, I had to go to people's houses and talk about the products. Most people didn't want to buy them, and some didn't even let me say anything. They just told me to go away and close the door. I had to smile all the time, even when someone wasn't nice to me. I felt so bad, but I kept trying. One of the biggest problems was the weather. I had to walk around town when it rained, snowed, or when it was extremely hot. It was so hard. Another problem was my boss. I didn't like her at all. She was always angry and compared me to the other girls and guys who worked for her. She told me that I was the worst.
The end of Part 6. Part 7. Past simple. When I was a kid, my biggest dream was. Story 19.
Leon, 36 years old, Germany. When I was a kid, I loved baking cakes with my grandma Joyce. We started baking together when I was 5 or 6 years old. It was my favorite thing to do, and I imagined myself as a famous baker. I baked something new almost every day, and everyone in my family had to try it. I wanted to have a shop and sell delicious cakes and ice cream. Making and eating My favorite food every day sounded like the best job in the world. My grandma laughed at me when I told her that, but she always believed in me. She knew that it really was my biggest dream. When I was 24, it finally happened. I opened my first bakery in Frankfurt. Grandma Joyce was very happy for me.
Story 20.
Molly, 24 years old, Canada. As a young girl, I dreamed of becoming a famous traveler and explorer. When I was 6, my mom bought me a book about Antarctica. She read it to me every evening. I loved everything about it. I learned every fact I could find about Antarctica, and I even made a presentation about it at school. For my 8th birthday, my parents built an igloo in the garden. I was so excited. They also bought me a book about Roald Amundsen. He went to Antarctica and arrived at the South Pole as the first person in the world. I wanted to be just like him, so I really hoped to go there one day too. I knew that I was too young and didn't have enough money to do it, but it definitely was my biggest dream.
Story 21.
Julia, 40 years old, Poland. When I was a child, I wanted to be a famous singer, actress, and dancer. My dream was to perform on Broadway in front of thousands of people. Many of my friends dreamed of becoming actors or singers as well, but they didn't want it as much as I did. How did it start? I watched Singing in the Rain for the first time when I was 5 years old, and I fell in love. I wanted to watch it every day, and I learned all the songs and dances from the movie. I even prepared special performances for my family. I dressed in my mom's clothes, used her lipsticks, and danced for her and Dad in the living room. They didn't always want to watch me, but they had to.
The end of Part 7. Part 8. Past simple. My last vacation. Story 22.
Iveta, 23 years old, the Czech Republic. My last vacation was awesome. I went to New York for the first time. I flew there with my friend Adela, and we were so excited about the trip. When we arrived at JFK Airport, we couldn't believe that we finally came to America. We found a taxi, and our taxi driver was nice. He told us about the city and listed all the places to visit. All tourists should see them, he said. He drove us to our apartment in Manhattan and carried our bags for us. It was late, and we were tired, so we went to bed quickly. The next morning, we walked to Central Park. There were so many tourists there. We asked someone to take a photo of us, and we sent it to all our friends. We spent 2 weeks in the city and visited so many great places. Our trip ended so quickly, but it was wonderful.
Story 23.
Matt, 52 years old, USA. Last July, my wife Carrie and I spent a week in Destin, Florida. It wasn't our first vacation there. We went to the same city 2 years ago. We decided to come back because we loved it so much, but we chose a different hotel this time. It was much smaller and a bit less elegant, but that wasn't important to us. Every day, we woke up early, ate breakfast in bed, and went to the beach next to our hotel. There weren't too many people there, so we could relax and talk to each other as much as we wanted to. In the evenings, we walked to the city center to have a drink at our favorite bar. On the last day of our vacation, we lost the keys to our hotel room. We couldn't find them anywhere, so we had to pay for them. It was so stressful.
Story 24.
Lisa, 39 years old, Scotland. My last vacation was horrible. I flew to Santorini with my boyfriend and two of our friends, Jason and Paige. When we arrived at our hotel, it didn't look like in the pictures in the catalog. It was different. The rooms were smaller and they were messy. We paid a lot of money for the hotel, so we were all angry. We spoke to the manager, but he didn't explain the situation. We didn't have more money, so we had to stay in the hotel. We didn't like the island because there were too many tourists there. We couldn't even eat in a nice restaurant because all of them were full of people. The beaches were beautiful, but they were full of tourists too. We didn't enjoy our vacation at all.
The end of Part 8. Part 9. Past simple. My favorite memory. Story 25.
Hannah, 35 years old, Sweden. In 2011, my band and I played our first big concert. We played at a music festival in London for hundreds of people. When the manager of the festival called and invited us there, we couldn't believe it. Of course, we quickly said yes. We were very nervous but so happy. We arrived in England 2 days before the concert and practiced all of our songs on a professional stage. When I stood on that stage for the first time, I almost cried. It was a very emotional moment. A few hours before the show, my friends and family phoned me and wished me good luck. The concert was great. I was shocked because many people knew all the words to our songs, and they repeated them when I sang. It meant so much to me.
Story 26.
Robert, 14 years old, Canada. My younger sister was born when I was 9 years old. I couldn't wait to become a big brother, so I was very excited to see her for the first time. My parents brought her from the hospital 3 days after she was born, and that was when I saw her. She was so small, and her eyes were just like mine. We all sat on the sofa and just looked at her. Mom and Dad couldn't choose a name for my sister, so they let me do it at that moment. I named her Natalie. I looked at her and thought that Natalie was the perfect name for her. It was strange, but my parents liked the name. A few hours later, we went for a walk in the park with little Natalie. It was a very special day.
Story 27.
Dan, 61 years old, USA. When I was 25, my friends and I took a trip to Palm Springs. On the 4th day of that trip, we went to a small jazz club near our hotel. It was a Wednesday night, so there weren't a lot of people there. We sat at the table, ordered some wine, and something magical happened. I saw the most beautiful woman in the world. She was a singer in that club. When I heard her voice, I fell in love. I told my friends that I just saw and heard my future wife, and they all laughed. I couldn't stop thinking about that woman, so I came back to that club every day. On the last day of the trip, I finally talked to her. She was kind, intelligent, and funny, the woman of my dreams. That was how I met my wife, Sally.
The end of Part 9. Part 10. Past Simple. The moment that changed my life. Story 28.
Antonio, 38 years old, Mexico. When I was 12 years old, my grandfather Jose died. Everyone in my family was shocked because he was healthy. We didn't understand what happened to him. Grandpa Jose was my best friend, so losing him was very hard for me. I spent almost every weekend at his house. We played cards and went fishing together, and he told the best stories. I loved how he described the past. It was always so interesting. When my mom told me that he died, I couldn't believe it. For the next few months, I was really sad. I thought about him and missed him every day. Sometimes, I woke up in the middle of the night and cried. My grandfather's death changed my life because it helped me understand that family is very important.
Story 29.
Emma, 44 years old, Australia. My life changed when I went to Australia 9 years ago. I didn't know why, but I very quickly felt like it was my new home. I loved everything there, the people, the culture, nature, the food. Everything was perfect. When I went back to Denmark, I wasn't happy. All my friends and family saw that something wasn't right. I want to move to Australia, I finally told them. They were very surprised, but they supported me. You have to follow your dreams, they said. I did what they told me to do. I followed my dreams. 2 months later, I packed my bags and flew to Melbourne. The first few weeks in a new country were difficult because my English wasn't great. I practiced speaking every day, and it improved quickly. A month later, I found a job and met my husband. Moving to Australia was definitely the best decision of my life.
Story 30.
Liam, 39 years old, Scotland. When I was 25, I got ill. I was very worried because doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They did so many tests, but they still couldn't explain it. After a month, they told me that there was a problem with my stomach. I stayed in the hospital for the next 3 months. My parents and my girlfriend visited me every day. We talked, listened to music, and watched movies. I was so happy when I came back home, but I still had to go to the hospital once a month. The doctors checked everything. A year later, they finally told me that I was healthy. Being ill changed my life. It showed me that nothing is more important than health and family.
The end of Part 10. Great job completing all of the stories. Well done. You've practiced the past simple tense, vocabulary, and listening skills. Remember to review the words and phrases you've learned. Try to review the vocabulary every day. Even 5 minutes per day will make you better. And continue learning with our stories. Here are some that you might like. Happy learning.